Welcome to the Vikings Squad Show. I'm Sam Ekstrom. I need the countdown from Luke Inman. How many days until the draft starts in Minneapolis in 2028?
632. Oh, sorry.
I'm Tyler Fornes of A to Z Sports, and I'm counting down the minutes until the CFL preseason kicks off at 1 o'clock. Who needs a 28 draft?
Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman. 300,000 Minnesotans will finally get their wish, booing Roger Goodell in person instead of through their TVs. Feels good.
Skol! It's the Viking Squad. Everything Minnesota Vikings every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the land of 10,000 lakes, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. It's time to gear up. The Viking Squad Show starts now.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome in. Happy Monday on the Viking Squad Show. Glad you're with us today on the #1 sports podcast network. We are brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, get $150 in bonus bets. If your first bet wins, head to FanDuel.com to get started. And we will start with the breaking news in a moment. The draft is coming to Minneapolis. We also had the schedule released Thursday night. We'll give our first reaction on this show to that. Toughest stretches, easiest stretches, biggest takeaways. We also begin our offseason series ranking all 90 Vikings on the roster, 90 through 1. Today we will do 90 through 81, part 1 of 9 in our offseason series. This is always a lot of fun. I'm operating at about 37% voice. So Luke Inman, Tyler Fornes, you're going to carry the load today, and you're going to tell me some of your schedule takeaways. Let's start with this. Weeks 8 through 11 are clearly the make or break section of this schedule. The Lions, the Bills, the Packers, the 49ers in Mexico City. That starts in week 8. I mean, Inman, you got to be 4-2 going into that. That is the meat of the season. That's the meat of the schedule. If you survive that stretch, this team could go to the playoffs.
Yeah, 100%, Sam. You nailed it. I feel like the schedule as a whole probably isn't that scary. What, 16th easiest schedule in the league? So smack that right in the middle. But you're totally right, man. That 4-game kind of monster gauntlet stretch right in the middle of the season, that feels like kind of your litmus test. Are we kind of a 500 team here? Are we a borderline playoff team? Or can we actually do some damage in the NFC this year for sure? But again, 16th easiest schedule. Just as far as your opponents go on paper. So not good, not bad. I still think about, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here. I still think about how Detroit ended up with that 4th place schedule by the hair of their teeth here. So instead of like San Francisco or the Rams, they get Arizona this year. Instead of, the Jacksonville Jags or the Houston Texans or the Colts like we get, they get the Tennessee Titans this year. And for me, that's such a tightly packed competitive division, obviously. Those matchups, right, could be the difference between the playoffs for some team and maybe sitting in Cancun, in middle of January. But I digress. Back to the schedule. Yeah, compared to last year, I will say it does feel a lot lighter, a lot easier. I think last year they had the 27th easiest schedule, I want to say. So compared to that, that's nice. Obviously, keeping all 9 home games, that's a huge one as well. You got the 4 primetime games. That's not only fun, but I think it tells you, the league thinks this team is going to be a fun watch, if nothing else, and, expects them to be competitive as well. No crazy long road trips, too, which is usually one of the first things I look for. So that's really nice as well. I want to say the only back-to-back road games they have this year is once, and it's early in the year, too, right out the gate. I think it's Chicago and in Tampa weeks 2 and 3. So that's huge as well. And then I guess my last note, I'll kick it over to you, Tyler, but only 2 cold weather games. Was a little bummed to see that they got both the Jets and New England later in the year, but still, when you look at the whole thing, top to bottom, only 2 cold weather games. That's nice. Maybe Green Bay at Green Bay, November 14th. That could probably go either way, but no in Chicago, no in Green Bay in December or, early January, which I think is huge, especially, when you start to think about Kyler Murray here in this offense, the history he's had in the cold, I feel like you want to stay away from that. So obviously you got to mark that as a slight advantage as well.
Yeah. What do you think?
100%. I'm very curious. I'm going to do a deep dive into some of Kyler Murray's cold weather stuff because I think he's only played like 3 games. So it's hard to make any kind of real referendum, especially because he played his entire career in the NFC West. And the coldest it gets is Seattle, which in December is still like 45 degrees. It's just rainy all the time. A couple of the interesting takeaways I had in the schedule was, and this might be a little bit of a controversial opinion, I hate getting the Jets in week 17 on the road. That screams classic trap game where the Jets may just be out of it. They may
Cade Klubnik under center.
Yeah. Everything just may have absolutely collapsed. It's on the road, potentially in freezing temperatures on January 3rd. That's a worrisome game to me, not because the Jets are going to be good by any stretch of the imagination, but it just feels like a game where the minds of everybody just may be off into yesteryear and just thinking about week 18 and maybe sealing up a division or the playoff spot. And all of a sudden you're overlooking the Jets. I'm very concerned with that game because it just screams one that the Vikings could lose. But I think there are a couple things that really stand out to me outside of my conspiracy theory with the Jets. One, they have the Mexico City game. And they have the ability to test some things out by going to the Mile High City for that final week of the preseason. Now, Mexico City is about 2,000 feet higher than Denver, Colorado. So there are going to be differences, and I am not a climatologist. I am not a medical trainer or anything like that. But there are things that can really hinder you when you get to elevation. So they might be able to test out some things. Hey, could this work for this? And potentially have a small advantage over the 49ers who play Denver, but they play them in Santa Clara. So maybe that's something where the Vikings get advantage. But I think the biggest takeaway is 5 of the last 7 at home. You have 5 of the last 7 at home, even if you go 1-3 in that death stretch. And let's say after the first 10 games, you're sitting at 6-4 or 5-5. There's a non-zero chance you go like 6-1 to finish the year. And all of a sudden you're cooking with gas going into the playoffs and you still finish like an 11-6. Being able to have the ability to stay at home and your 2 road trips are a Thursday night, which those games get fluky anyway. So being on the road, I don't really care. They're fluky. And then the Jets right after Christmas and New Year's. I think you got a pretty good way to finish the year. And to finish off with Luke's point, last year the Vikings had a second place schedule. And it only accounts for 3 games. They lost all 3. And they were not competitive in any of them. So even though it doesn't necessarily matter that much, it matters a lot because those games can really flip your schedule.
Yeah,
I will.
Sorry, Sam, just real quick. Norse Force put up a good point over there. 10 days rest before the Lions game. You look at the opponent rest advantage, right? There's only one opponent rest advantage on this whole schedule. That's against Atlanta, coming off the Mexico City game, I believe. And then compared to the Vikes, they have 2 rest advantages, one against the Colts and then against the Lions, like he pointed out, week 15. So you love to see that as well. And yeah, you're totally right, Forno. Like 5 of your last 7 at home, that's so nice. You love that. You'd rather have that, obviously, at the last stretch than at the beginning stretch. But I keep going back to that stretch from 8 to 11, weeks 8 to 11. I'm not sure I've seen a harder 4-game stretch, maybe ever. I don't know. I'm having a hard time pulling out the Rolodex and thinking back, but maybe that'd be a good homework assignment for somebody listening. Like, look at the other 31 teams. Find me a harder 4-game stretch than what they've got there. Back-to-back road division games, and not like, oh, it's a sub 500 division. No, this arguably is maybe the best division in football. These are powerhouses. These are tough games to go into the Lions Den or in Lambeau, and you got to do it back-to-back. and then the Bills on Monday Night Football. And then after all that, you travel to Mexico City and you get the Niners, who we touched on. I wanted the Niners earlier because I think George Kittle will end up being put on that PUP list. Not by that point. I'm sure George Kittle will be healthy and thriving by then too. So yeah, absolutely diabolical stretch there. Really makes me think if they don't enter that bye week above 500, the vibes are just going to be tough going into that stretch. You know, they're going to be hard pressed not to feel like they have to go on another late run. You don't want to feel like you have to go on this late season run like they did last year. But again, as a whole, I'm just thinking back to last year. As a whole, I don't think it's that scary. It's just an interesting kind of order in which the schedule makers kind of play some of these games this year.
Yeah, I don't love the week 6 bye again. A little bit annoying, a little too early for my liking, but it feels a lot like last year where you had those 2 games before the bye. They were in Europe, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and you said you better get those games going into the bye because then it gets a little tricky after that. And I say the same thing again this year, Dolphins Saints going into the bye. Well, that's going to be huge because you want to set yourself up, I think, 4-2 going into that stretch. Now, how do you get to 4-2? Your first 3 games are not easy. Green Bay, Chicago, Tampa. I know we like to give the NFC South grief. Tampa on the road is not a walkover game. That's going to be a tough game to win. And then obviously the division games before that. So you'd love to start 1-2 minimum. Give yourself a chance to beat some bad teams going into the bye. Colts without D Jones maybe out of the bye. Be 4-2 going into that stretch. I would like to spin it with the Jets a little differently than Forno. Think of it this way. Of your final 8 games, you have 2 true road games, and one of them is the Jets. Like, Norris Force makes another good point. Jets could be in tank mode. Jets could be 2-12, 2-13 at that point. And then, like Luke said, fluky Thursday in New England. Who knows what's going to happen? But could we get a home Thursday game? Like, since Thursday games came into existence, guys, what is the balance of home versus road? I feel like it's 15% of those have been road home games for the Vikings, 85 road. Always traveling on the short week.
The last one was 2022, Thanksgiving night against the Patriots. And then the only one I remember before that was, 2016 when we hosted the Cowboys and lost 17-15?
They did have a Pittsburgh game.
Pittsburgh
game. Came down to the wire. Yeah. I went to the Bucks game when Doug Martin ran all over us. It wasn't even close. It was just an absolute blowout. That had to be.
That was the Jared Allen, Donald Penn fight.
There you go.
All-time moment.
Yeah, that was really good. 30-17, I want to say, 2012. 20, maybe.
That might have been 13.
2013. Okay. Yeah, I look at that schedule and I think this could be a playoff team. If Kyler Murray stays healthy for 17 games, this could be a playoff team. And it's funny how you can't really arrive to that conclusion until you see the order of games because we knew the opponents already and we knew the locations. But when you see the dates and times and the stretches and the setups, I think this could be a playoff team. I don't know if it's a division winning playoff team. It might be a wild card team. It might be a 10-7 team. But I think that's a playoff team when I look at that schedule. Forno, did you hazard a record prediction in your analysis of that schedule?
I hate doing the record prediction stuff, but of course I had to do it for A to Z Sports. I think I ended up with an 11-6 record. And I think the floor of this team with the coaches that you have on it and the overall talent outside of catastrophic injuries, the floor of this team is like 8 or 9 wins. And that's not being a homer. Last year, the Vikings had catastrophically bad quarterback play. And all people could talk about after the season was, oh, if Ivan Pace just would have filled that gap in that kick return against the Bears, they make the playoffs and win the division. Like, catastrophic quarterback play, and this team was one theoretical special teams goof from making the playoffs and hosting a game. Like, this is a good football team. Is it one that could transcend and win a Super Bowl? I have severe doubts about that. But if Kyler Murray just plays like a top 10 quarterback, all bets are off and anything is possible. I think the Vikings are going to win a game that you probably don't think they will, and they'll lose a game like you probably don't think they will, like every single year. They'll probably go and beat the Patriots and lose to the Jets just to mess with our minds. And we would have predicted 1-1 anyways, but it'll flippy do because that's what they love to do to us. Overall, it's a schedule that's winnable. I love getting the Dolphins early because there's a lot of one-year contracts, a lot of guys who normally wouldn't get playing time, and a team of a bunch of guys that really has to play for their football future that's going to be super motivated to play. You want to get them when that chemistry is at its lowest point, and getting them in the first few weeks, I think, is a good thing because that could be a real trap game for teams toward the end of the year. Think the 2019 Dolphins when they were actively tanking and Brian Flores dragged them to 5 wins in the final 8 games.
I think any team in this division can win it this year. I think it's just so wide open. It's just so competitive. It's going to come down to staying healthy and obviously getting hot at the end. But love getting the Packers without Micah Parsons in week 1. I know that. And then also, too, just looking at the Bears discrepancy, talk about the Vikings going from 27th easiest to 16. The Bears just went from what, like 26th easiest to, or vice versa, switch that up, like 6th easiest to like 26th easiest. It's something insane. So it's going to be a gauntlet for the Bears compared to what they had to go through last year. Now they got a little bit more target on their back. They got a little bit more attention, a lot more pressure now from Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. So it's going to be one of the, if not maybe the most competitive divisions, I feel like, in the NFL right now.
Forno, maybe this is an A to Z sports project for you. I would like to see the correlation between preseason schedule strength projection and then how it turned out postseason. Like how, so you had the easiest schedule on paper going in, and then based on opponent win-loss percentage, like how it ended up. See those lists next to each other. I think that'd be interesting to see cool. if it's really a meaningful stat that we cite with the second place schedule, the third place schedule. Your stat is interesting. Vikings went 0-3 against the second place teams last year that they played. Let's talk about the NFL draft coming to Minneapolis when we return. Brought to you today by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and you've got a pesky position that needs to be filled. When the pressure's on, you need the right hire. It's a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. They help you find the people who fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. You're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. 27 hires are made worldwide every minute on Indeed. Let that sink in. So when you're hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates at Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Indeed.com/podcast right now. Support our show, saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? It's a job for Indeed. Sponsor jobs. And please check out Luke Braun on Locked On Vikings and Locked On Vikings After Dark with Arif Hassan. That's all found on the Locked On Vikings YouTube channel and podcast feed, which is free and available across the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, the draft is coming. It has not been made league official, but sources close to the league are all saying that it's going to happen. Probably tomorrow it will be announced. The draft is coming downtown. This, and I'm not a logistics expert. I haven't paid close attention to the plans for every other city that's done this. It feels like a smaller footprint for a downtown setup. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I'm assuming some combo of stadium along with the green space outside the stadium. I don't know if we can host 100,000. I don't know if all 56,000 seats or 62,000 seats, whatever, are going to be available in the stadium. It's going to be cool, though. It's going to be cool. The draft is coming to Minneapolis, Inman. This is a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this has kind of been the dream or what people have been pounding the table for a while. I mean, we've been so adamant about getting it here. To your point, now that we got the green light, now that we got it here, we got the A-OK. I guess my brain does, like you, start to go to the logistics, like where we I'm gonna have to pull up the numbers, the last few places that have hosted and see what kind of numbers they did. You know, Green Bay, obviously Pittsburgh, Tennessee, not too long ago. But where are we housing 100,000, 200,000 people? Because to your point, Sam, you know, US Bank Stadium doesn't seem realistic to fit that many people. TCO, no, that's not going to work. MOA, Mall of America, maybe. I know, you know, this is going to be a huge talking point. Just as far as the logistics go, I'm very intrigued to see how it all plays out. What site they actually roll with, how it all looks when it's all said and done. Cross that bridge when we get there, though, Sam. Great day to be a Viking fan. Great day to be a kind of NFL draft nut and nerd like we are. Not only do we get to boo Roger Goodell in person now, but now we get to have, you know, 150, 200,000 Vikings fans together in unison talking about why that fifth round corner from Toledo is the missing piece that we needed to get over the hump. So it's going to be magical, man. I can't wait.
Mm-hmm. I think it's cool that the Minneapolis is getting this. I also find it interesting that they're the final NFC North team to get the NFL draft. Chicago hosted in 25 and 26. Lambeau hosted in 15 and 16. Lambeau hosted in 25 and Ford Field in 24. My concern is it's a potential logistics nightmare. Like, you can get 60-some thousand people flowing into US Bank Stadium, and then you can get them out. But the history of how the NFL draft has been structured in all these different locations, you look at the Lambeau Field one last year, it was in Titletown, which is right next to Lambeau Field, and you have this giant area where people can kind of walk around. It like Lambeau is in a neighborhood, which if you've never been, I recommend it. It's an incredible time, but you can do things within that construct, and then you can have people flow into Lambeau Field. People were able to kind of flow into Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh this past year, and they had enough space to kind of have that amphitheater. I'm worried it's just going to be a disaster. You're going to have to close off blocks on blocks of downtown Minneapolis. And it reminds me of Nashville when they basically had all of Broadway closed off, and you had hundreds of thousands of people just walking the streets nonstop. Everybody's packed in like sardines. There just is not a lot of space. And considering, from what I understand, the entire plan and the pitch that the Vikings made to the NFL was specifically to have it right outside US Bank Stadium, I really don't know how logistically they're going to make it work. It's going to be cool. It's going to be awesome to have US Bank Stadium in the background, and it's going to be awesome that it's here. But I have a lot of concerns logistically, and it sounds like they already haven't figured out, and we'll find out in time, but it's not a big space.
The closest thing we have to compare it to, I feel like, was the Super Bowl, I guess, in 2017. But even with that, you're much different logistics, but also, like, to your point, Fordo, you mentioned before the show, like Radio Row, they moved that to MOA. You know, they kind of stretch things out a little bit outside of that. This is just one specific event for 3 days that's going to have to be in the heart of Seoul, I'm assuming, right next to US Bank Stadium. But again, yeah, to your point, logistic-wise, it feels like they got a lot of work cut out for themselves, for sure.
Like let's remind people, this is the downtown where tailgating is reserved to, like, miniature little parking lots. Like, there is no tailgating scene in downtown Minneapolis. Now, the green space is cool, but these are the attendance figures in the last handful of years. Nashville, 600,000. Then you had the pandemic. Then Vegas comes out with 300,000. Kansas City, 300,000. Okay, so, you know, that's already a big number. Then it goes up to Detroit, 775,000 people. Green Bay last year, or 2 years ago, 600,000. Pittsburgh sets the record at 800,000. We are not ready for that.
Even if they do a fraction, say it's 200,000, which is 100,000 less than the smallest, you know, attendance numbers with, what'd you say, KC, I want to say, maybe Green Bay as well.
Yeah.
200,000, dude. That's 4 times the amount of traffic that you see, to your point, 4-0, going in and out on a Sunday game day, which is already kind of hectic.
Yeah, and that's
yeah,
a 3-day total. 800,000 is a 3. So
Fair.
chop it
Yep.
down by 3. 250,000 a day, like 4 times the amount of a game. I feel like we're being crabby, but also just asking the questions that need to be asked. How are we going to be able to do this and cram, because that's a very finite area. I don't know how you expand beyond that little park right outside the stadium. You got the train going through. The train track infrastructure is kind of in the way as well. You can't pick that up and move it. So there's a lot of things to think about, and I'm fascinated to see how it goes. I'm sure Minneapolis has a history of putting on events and doing a good job. Fascinated to see how it turns out, and you're going to get Vikings fans from North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, Wisconsin coming across the border and coming to the city, which is going to be incredible. So I hope that once this becomes official tomorrow, there are some real concrete plans shown to like give confidence and build excitement about the event.
Yeah, the excitement's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. But if they can figure out logistics, then I'll stop being a crab about it, because I just have real concerns about the logistics. And then of course, you're going to have all these bad faithers talking about like Minneapolis in a negative context leading up to it, which is just going to be, an incredibly frustrating thing for everybody. If they nail it, everybody's just going to just absolutely talk great about the Vikings. And I'll say this to kind of wrap up my point of the conversation. If they nail the NFL draft, maybe they'll be willing to come back for another Super Bowl, because the only thing that we heard from a lot of these reporters coming out of the Super Bowl, it was too cold, because the day of the game was like -10. It just happened to be incredibly cold that weekend. But Radio Row was one of the coolest experiences because it was in a super non-traditional environment, and they had like First Take down in the Hard Rock Cafe, which was really cool. And getting a Super Bowl back here would mean a huge influx to the economy. Plus, it would be awesome to have another one in US Bank Stadium, because it's just a gorgeous venue. Like, there are things that you can do to build off of this. And hey, maybe you'll get another Final Four because they nail everything else. Like, there are other things to think about if they can absolutely do a great job with the NFL draft.
You do bring up a good point, though. Weather could be a huge factor, because late April in Minneapolis is hit or miss. I'm not saying it's going to be bad and rainy and cold, but it certainly could be, and nobody would be surprised. And that just makes, again, another layer of the logistics that much tougher. But all in all, though, it is pretty cool. Super glad they finally punched their ticket, and we're on the list now for 2028. I'm excited.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of luck Green Bay got with weather, or Detroit, but it's certainly a risk that it could be 40 degrees and raining. That is not out of the question. Also could be 75 and sunny. So that happens in, what's the number, Inman? 632 days, something like that.
Yep.
Coming up 2028. Let's start ranking our top 90 Vikings on the roster. 90-man power rankings begins next. And we're brought to you by FanDuel today. NBA playoffs are down to their final 4 teams. Doesn't include the Timberwolves, but they've still got great offers. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right, turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. And what's great about the $150 is you can spend it however you want. No increments, no limits. Like you've got that to spread around however you want to on FanDuel. So it can be futures, it can be prop bets, money lines, over-unders, whatever you want. And the NBA playoffs are going to have some compelling stories. The Spurs Thunder series is going to be incredible. So check out FanDuel.com right now to get started. FanDuel, play your game. And we'll be back on Thursday for more Vikings talk and the Vikings Squad Show. Alec Lewis, Reggie Wilson join on Thursdays. All right. We did this last year. Had some fun with it. Let's try it again. Our 90-man roster power rankings. 9-part series. Today we do 90 through 81. So the bottom 10 players on the Vikings roster. I will screen share so we can track everybody's rankings. Bear with me as we do that. Here we go. Forno, just to familiarize you, I'll show you last year's list. Had a lot of
Let's see 91 on everybody's list.
91 last year. Arif Hassan, Miles Price. Let's laugh at Arif.
It's so fun to laugh at Arif.
A guy that actually contributed pretty significantly was his number 91. I'm trying to find any other big
he was my 79.
Here.
I can't say much. I can't laugh too hard.
I don't know. Like 79. Nobody thought he'd do anything because he was like signed like 3 days after the draft.
Yeah.
It was tiny, didn't have great athletic testing.
Yeah.
Like I get it.
Oh, let's see where Jalen Redmond was. That's
Ooh.
probably a good Jalen Redmond.
Max Brosmer is a funny one to look back at too. Just knowing he started a game.
I actually did my own last year for A to Z. I should look up see where I had Redmond, because I think I had Redmond in like the 20s.
We had him between 30 and 41 was the dispersion.
And who had him the highest? Sam, I think that was
Sam
you,
Ekstrom.
Right? Look at that.
That's Sam Ekstrom.
At
knows
Sam
a thing
Ekstrom.
or two.
What is it? Hold on. At Sam Ekstrom. Thank you.
So who is going to there's only 90 right now. So we'll just start with 90. There is a possibility of having 91 because they have the international player. But Luke Inman, why don't you give us your Mr. Irrelevant, and we'll see next year how wrong you were.
Yeah, never fun to do it. Somebody's got to take the 90 spot, though, or 89, I guess. Begnali Kamara, linebacker. I think somebody poked some fun at him last episode. The guys who they sign in the middle of the May usually are lingering around for a reason, right? Usually one of the first ones to go. So knowing they just brought him in, I got to think he's just a warm body right now at that linebacker spot, a spot that they just don't have a lot of depth at. So he's my first guy out.
Rookie camp guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rookie camp along with Smith Vilbert, I want to say. Number 59, linebacker. Can anyone name his college?
Kansas.
Yep. Jayhawk. Give me your number 90, Forno.
Cornerback Tyreek Chappell. I kind of did the bottom of this list because I haven't had the opportunity to watch all of these guys yet. I kind of utilized the UDFA money that came out over the weekend and tried to balance the list somewhat because the guys that they sign nowadays are more likely to make the team. I think Arif did a study where they're like almost like 2 to 4 times more likely to make the team than a standard UDFA because they sign it like after rookie minicamp, because you have to show that you're way better than these guys who already have contracts. Elijah Williams is one of those guys. So Chappell didn't get any guaranteed money, no bonus, no guaranteed money at all, just zeros. So he's my 90.
Yeah, I respect that logic. I'm going to go with number 90, Devion Armstead. If you're not spectacular as a corner at Sam Houston and North Texas, then you better be the best special teams player on the team. And I don't know if he is or not. So until he shows me that he is, it's going to be my number 90. Granted, if you're a corner that has a pulse, I guess you have a chance to make this roster. So maybe this is a fool's ranking for Devion Armstead because he is a cornerback. But I guess so is Forno's. So I'll go with Devion Armstead.
To your point here, Sam, and I'll probably mention this 3 or 4 times, but cornerback and wide receiver just feel like an absolute bloodbath this year. There's just so many, that just the mass amount of bodies they have that they brought in UDFAs through the draft, you name it. There's so many guys back there for only obviously so many limited spots that it's going to be interesting to see who kind of weeds through and rises to the top. But a lot of these guys are going to get trimmed like the fat off the roster. So, yeah, that's a good one for sure. My next guy, Jacob Thomas, safety, UDFA, James Madison. Small school guys, not going to help. Already behind the 8 ball. If you're going to play safety on this team, you got to be versatile. You got to be smart. You got to know what you're doing. And you got to be able to play special teams as well. So that just feels like a lot on somebody's plate for a UDFA with no experience to come in and somehow find themselves in the good graces of Brian Flores. So he feels like a big long shot for me as well. 89.
So how would they do the jersey if Jacoby Thomas and Jacob Thomas both made the team?
J-A period and J-E period. Or
no, it'd have to be J-A-C and J-A-K, right?
Yeah.
These are the things that you have to think about when you're putting together your 53-man roster.
May 18th. These are huge conversations.
Do we really want to stress out the equipment manager like that? Nah, we don't.
I've been watching a lot of 30 Rock lately, and this is exactly what Tracy Jordan would do to Liz Lemon, so I'm here for it.
Great reference.
4-0.
Running back, Keon, I think it's how you pronounce it, Kejon Owens, Florida International. Look, I'm a degenerate. I watched the Tuesday and Wednesday CUSA in action. He didn't really do much to pop off the screen at that level of football. I think he's just the guy that you're going to give 10, 15 carries in the third preseason game, and that's pretty much going to be what you see of him.
I will go with at number 89, linebacker Keely Lawson, possibly Kelly Lawson. He's a light linebacker who does not appear to be great in coverage. That seems like a bad combination. So he's my number 89, Keely Lawson. 88, Inman.
Luke, great name. That's about all I got, though. Wysong, wide receiver, 5'10", $192 from Arizona. Again, UDFA, zero experience. And again, in a room just littered with guys, just feels like he's going to be near the bottom of the totem pole there.
4-0.
Edge rusher Cameron Stewart out of Temple. Only had, I believe, $1,000 in guaranteed money, which is significantly low. Plus, even in an edge room that's going to have opportunities, I still think that there's going to be an edge 3 signing, and it's just going to absolutely kaput these guys who were signed as UDFAs at the spot.
Yeah, and I'll get to my Cameron Stewart shortly, but only 500 collegiate snaps for him as well. Number 88, wide receiver Marcus Sanders Jr. Again, when you don't have a great college career at a really small college, you just got to be the best special teams player around. And I know that's happened before, but you got to prove it. You got to show me that you can be, I always forget his name, who is Najee Thompson. If you're not Najee Thompson, then this is probably not going to go well for you. So Marcus Sanders Jr., number 88, the wide receiver from Georgia Southern.
Same school as Najee, by the way.
Maybe there's a track record. We've got some intel.
Scout the helmet, baby.
I was way off on Najee Thompson, I will confess. Inman, what do you got?
Kelly Lawson. You already mentioned it. Linebacker, UCF, 6'4", only 223 pounds at 6'4" for a linebacker. Again, just feels like a kind of a warm body at a position. They just need some bodies and depth for, strictly practice purposes at this point. So he's next on my list.
Go ahead, Forno.
Cornerback Devon Armstead from North Texas. I will say he's the one guy I've actually seen a few snaps of. I saw a couple good things. I know one of my buddies in the industry, Kevin Fielder, he's like a small school specialist. He likes him like to be like a depth corner, and that might be a guy. But the Vikings also gave him zero guaranteed money, so they don't necessarily see a super bright future. But I saw at least a little bit more to bump him up a couple spots rather than just have him last.
You know what I'm realizing? I really hate these wide receivers this year at the bottom of the roster. I've got number 87, Shalik Knotts. Shalik Knotts. He's very tall, and I'm not sure if he's good at anything else besides being tall, but that is what they're hanging their hat on. Shalik Knotts, number 87 for me. Inman.
Yeah, Cameron Stewart time. The edge, you kind of already went over him. Just doesn't feel like his resume really gives you a lot to believe in there. Plus, I know there's some thin depth there at edge 2, edge 3 once you get behind Bo Richter, but with Bo and then Elijah Williams, I just can't see them keeping more than 5, maybe 6 at the most. So even practice squad wise, Cameron Stewart, I think he's on the outside looking in.
Shalik Knotts, Maryland wide receiver. Just you hope maybe you can strike gold with one of these guys, but I'm also very unimpressed overall with this group of wide receivers. It's just kind of meh.
Yeah, let's keep it going. Terrell Davis. This is Terrell Davis, so not Terrell Davis. So, one letter off, you could have been great.
Yeah,
been great.
Hall of Famer.
Central Oklahoma receiver for 4 years, and then one decent, average year at being a wide receiver 3-ish at Oklahoma State. He's number 86 on my list, Terrell Davis.
One thing to mention with him is when he's at Central Oklahoma, look, it's a D2 school, but he led the entire nation regardless of classification in receiving production in 2024. So that's at least noteworthy that, hey, maybe there might be something there, but there probably isn't.
And it surprised me because he was one of their most recent signings, I believe, as well, right? They just picked him up.
Yep.
Maybe the most recent signing, actually.
Thursday or Friday, yeah.
Yeah. Arden Walker, next on my list, linebacker from Colorado, 6'2", 250, a little bit bigger boy. Maybe has potential on special teams there, but again, I know I mentioned corner and wide receiver, but linebacker as well. Once you get past the big three, it just feels like they knew we got to bring in some bodies here just for second and third team practice purposes. Arden Walker next on my list.
Marcus Sanders Jr., the Georgia Southern wide receiver. Georgia Southern, interesting program that Clay Helton just kind of brought back from the verge of near death. They ran the triple option. Now they're just an air raid team. But Sanders really, I didn't find him all that impressive. The little bits and pieces of Georgia Southern I've watched just kind of existed. And that's not really a good sign for your NFL future.
Let's just keep ripping the wide receivers, I guess. Number 85, Joaquin Davis. UNC Central, 1 year as a undrafted free agent with the Broncos. I guess he's got that 1 year under his belt, but I'm going to put him number 85, Joaquin Davis. So we are inevitably going to have egg on our face about one of these wide receivers because I am not high on virtually any of them. Luke Inman, 84.
The running back, Forno already mentioned him, Keyshawn Owens. FIU. I'm all for throwing some darts at some of these late round or UDFA running backs. Maybe you can strike gold, find a Kamani Vidal from Troy, the Chargers found last year. But to Forno's point, you watch a couple games of him, and he just doesn't do much for you. He just, if he can't separate from that smaller school pack in some of those games, he's going to have a tough road to climb to even making a practice squad at this point, it feels like.
Yeah, I completely agree. Mine is Arden Walker, edge rusher. I don't know, maybe some special teams utility. I'm curious if maybe he's got a little Bo Richter to him where he can play a little off ball. I need to do some more research on that. But yeah, just really an unimpressive group of undrafted free agents overall that we've really been used to seeing a little bit better crop.
We've been spoiled a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you think that correlates with the money that they committed to it? Like, is this the continued transformation of the Wilfs into the Polads? They're just cutting costs on the UDFAs now. What's going on here?
I would say no. Last year they had so many roster spots available for UDFAs where committing extra money made sense, because if you commit, it's $247,500 for a practice squad roster spot in 2026. And they gave 3 guys that. Well, they had 7 make the team last year. So if you gave 5 guys that, more than likely you're that money, it doesn't even matter that's guaranteed. You're not, quote unquote, wasting money. But this year, there's a lot more roster spots theoretically already committed to players. So I think it's one, a combination of that, and two, there was just a lot less talent available to really want to prioritize and put any kind of long-term investment in than there has been in past years.
It's good rationale. My number 84 is another rookie camp body, Smith Vilbert. Great name. Not a strong track record of production at Penn State or North Carolina. My number 84. We're not loving the edge group. We're not loving the wide receiver group. Inman, who do you have at 83?
I got, maybe, is he our first non-rookie or UDFA? I'm going with a 4-year vet from Western Kentucky, corner Khalif Halassi. The limited stuff I've seen of him, I think he was in my bottom 10 last year as well. Surprised he's lingered around this long. Saw him a little bit in preseason games as well. Just not doing it for me. Surprised he's on the roster right now. And again, with a new influx of all these UDFAs, the guys they've drafted in the secondary, I wonder if he finally bites the bullet this year.
Didn't he have two interceptions on tip drills late
Yes.
in a preseason game? Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
4-0.
All right. My next one is Kelly Lawson. I begged and pleaded for the Vikings to take Eric Gentry at the end of the draft because I thought the wacky inflatable 2-man in the middle of the defense could be really, really fun. He had plus athleticism, no play strength, but you play him at a dime backer, that's fine. But yeah, this just feels like a discount version of that. And I'm not impressed.
Cameron Stewart, for me, for the reasons laid out. He only had 500 collegiate snaps. And they weren't. It's tough to find a lot of confidence about his resume. So number 82, we've got 2 spots left today. Luke Inman,
Shalik Knotts, boy, way higher on him than you guys. It looks like Shalik Knotts. He's my 82 player, not 86 player. But Scout in the helmet, maybe they've struck gold with the Maryland Terps before. Ty Felton last year. They're keeping the trend going. Again, just feels like another body they wanted to bring in that they were a little intrigued about and see what he can do in camp, but got to think he's in the bottom 10 right now.
Mm-hmm. My 82 cornerback, Marcus Allen. I just don't think this guy can tackle. And I think that's a really, really big problem when it comes to playing in Brian Flores defense. And you got to be able to tackle, especially in the back end.
You do. That's true. Number 82, Monkel Goodwine. Had one decent college season. Yeah, but that's it. Interior defender, Monkel Goodwine. Number 82, I believe, is South Carolina. Monkel. Inman, last one.
Smith Vilbert, another edge. You kind of already went over him, Sam. Just going to have a tough time even making a practice squad, I think.
My last one, Dartmouth offensive lineman Delby Lemieux. Seeing people talk about him maybe making the team as like another center. I don't know. I watched the Ivy League tape. He's bad. I saw him at the Senior Bowl, and he was bad. I don't see it personally. So he's 81.
I started with the corner. I'll finish with one, Tyreek Chappell. That was Forno's Mr. Irrelevant. Inman, though, did not have Tyreek Chappell in his bottom 10. No huge swings here. Kept it mostly to UDFAs, undrafted players from the last couple of years. All right, we'll finish up with some GM talk. Forno had an interesting tweet the other day. We'll get into that and much more on the Vikings Squad Show. Oh, the voice is hanging on by a thread. And we are presented by Rocket Money today. Yes, Rocket Money allows you to track subscriptions, track spending, and track upcoming bills so you're not overwhelmed and confused where all your money is going. You can take control of your finances all in one place, and you can categorize your spending. When you see where the money's going, it helps you set budgets. It helps you increase your savings, and that's good. Because when you increase savings, you increase your peace of mind. So get more organized and get a clear financial picture with Rocket Money, a personal finance app, and let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals. RocketMoney.com/locked-on. RocketMoney.com/locked-on. All right, let's roll on the Vikings Squad Show. Let's get our faces in the right place. There we go. Forno, why don't you talk us through your tweet from a couple days ago, maybe Friday, maybe Saturday, about the Chargers assistant GM removing himself from contention for the Vikings GM job. Why do you think that is significant?
Oh, I think it's very significant because, and this is just kind of me reading between the lines, I think this could have something to do with the power dynamics within the building, because Alexander is more than ready to take over as a general manager. He's served under Ozzie Newsome, who hired him initially as a scout. He's served with Phil Savage, Joe Ortiz currently, Joe Douglas, who had a very mixed bag overall at with the Jets, but they had some really good draft picks, especially high. And then also Eric DeCosta in Baltimore. He's known as a big culture builder and communicator. And the fact that Quasio Fomensa reporting came out after he was fired that he spent a little too much time just in his office with his spreadsheets, theoretically, and just wanting to focus more on his own work rather than building out relationships and stuff. Alexander's specialty is building out those relationships, along with being a longtime scout with a good track record. So the fact that he said no to an interview, to me, it leads me to believe that the Vikings told him that he's not going to have the power that he needs in order to be like a successful general manager. I think Kevin O'Connell has a significant say, and he tried to downplay it at rookie minicamp. They asked him about the general manager search, and he's like, I will be as involved as they want me to be. And then it came out from Kevin Seifert last week that he's one of the few people in the meetings with the Wilfs, their children, because they're going to pass the business on to them. Andrew Miller, Rob Brzezinski, obviously. So the fact that he said no, and my theory was he was going to be one of the three candidates that I thought was going to be a finalist. It was going to be him, John McKay of the Rams, and Terrence Gray of the Bills. The fact that he said no completely was a shock. And that leads me to question a lot of things about this whole process, because why is he choosing to stay with the Chargers when the Vikings are a very stable organization? They're willing to give you money outside of like the salary cap to compete. They have world-class facilities, top 2 in all 4 NFLPA report cards. Why would he say no to an interview? I think he was told something he didn't like. And I'm very curious if that has something to do with the power dynamics in the building.
I think you're probably right. I think that makes the most sense when you think about everything that we know, everything that we've heard over the last few months with this kind of transition GM spot. There's still some unknown factor, though, too. I mean, there's been a laundry list of, candidates, I guess, or applicants. And I wonder if somebody looked at that list and was like, okay, I'm one of about 14 different names here. Do I want to go in and get rejected and have egg on my face? Or maybe I enjoy this spot that I'm in now and maybe something else opens up next year. I think there is a couple more different factors, but I totally agree. This is a unique GM situation and kind of interviewing process because we know KOC is a lot more involved than most head coaches in the league. So that does throw a little quirk, a little wild card into the mix that some GMs, to your point, some GMs just might not be super comfortable with. So I think that makes sense.
GM question for you both. New GM comes in, let's say it's not Rob Brzezinski. What would fans want them to do to generate some confidence? Like what would you guys want to see a new GM come in and accomplish between now and the season to kind of put their stamp on the team, show like, okay, like we're going to make this a really competitive outfit now and into the future? Like, what do you think that move is, Forno?
Well, I'm going to layer it in 2 conversations. What the fan base is going to want is for him to fire Ryan Gregson. They don't believe in Gregson. They see the track record of his tenure as a general manager of the Indianapolis Colts, which was really poor after the 2012 draft. And I think he's learned enough, and we've heard some things of like who he was involved in selecting. people point to him being really involved in the Ed Ingram selection. I'll defend it because I think Ingram was a good guard and he got paid a pretty substantial second contract. But I'm on an island on that one, and I'm okay. For me, help just continue reestablishing the core of this team. Get a Brian O'Neill extension done. Get a Jordan Addison extension done, and try to get those slightly under what market value would be for O'Neill. I deem market value is $24 million a year. For Jordan Addison, I think it's going to be around $26.7 million a year, because with how cap inflation is going, it's going to be kind of between, like, because he's a wide receiver too, but top end wide receiver 2 money is between Jameson Williams and T. Higgins, which is like 26 to 28. So slot right in there. And I think that makes a lot of sense. If you can get those guys for a little bit less, that would inspire a lot of confidence with me about your negotiating skills. And all these guys have relatively good track records when it comes to scouting and the drafts that they've been a part of. But once you're the guy, let's make some good decisions. Let's get these guys extended long-term to good contracts.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I think the very first thing, though, wouldn't even be a move itself. I think it would be the conversation we just started. And I'll say this too. I'm usually the first guy in line to take everything we hear at any pressers or press conference with a grain of salt. But I think one of the best things they could do, whoever it is come in and go on record publicly and say, you're aligned with KOC, because the last thing you want is to kind of feel like there is this power struggle right from the get-go, or maybe there's 2 different timelines going on from one guy to the other, or even like philosophical tension right from the get-go. So come out, let the fans know you and KOC are on the same page. You see everything eye to eye, and just assure the fans, the people, that you're working as one cohesive unit together and kind of adapting to one another. That's what I would love to hear. And I think that might be almost more important, if not the most important thing, compared to like the first mover transaction is. So that would be the first step. And then we get to step 2, which is exactly what you just mentioned for now. Extend the right core guys, the right veterans. And we can talk about the pros and cons, whether that's a Van Ginkel, O'Neill, Cashman, Addison, whoever it may be. But I think the fan base is going to want to see some stability right away, some clarity, I guess, some direction, what the vision is. I think that would go a long way as well. I don't think you want to come out and make a flashy move just to kind of mark your territory or try to set the tone and say, hey, look, I'm a guy who gets stuff done. I think the last thing you want to see is him maybe forcing something just to give this persona that, hey, I'm this ultra aggressive GM here. And if anything, really, to that point, I think the best move is probably going to be some restraint. And again, continuing to kind of build through the draft and around those core vets, the nucleus of talent that you already got in place.
Yeah, I think the fan base needs a deposit of goodwill right now. I think they want someone to come in and you guys have laid it out. Keep O'Neill around. Keep Cashman around. Maybe you can't afford everybody, but show them that, all right, we know who our core is, and we want them around into the future. Mm-hmm. We are not going to go into 2027 resetting the deck entirely, because if you don't re-sign Hawkinson, Van Ginkel, O'Neill, Cashman, and you've already traded Grenard in what many would consider a bad deal, and you made that move before you hired a GM, I think you needed a positive goodwill at this point. So whoever this GM is going to be, I think they're going to have maybe a lower bar to clear, because the fans aren't thrilled right now. Maybe disenchanted with the draft pick of Caleb Banks. I don't know, but I don't think they're thrilled with the way this offseason's gone to this point. We will be back. Yeah, go ahead, Forno. Final thoughts.
No, I think the biggest thing is there's no splash. Kyler Murray, it's a discounted contract. Outside of that, it's James Pierre. There was really no splash. And the biggest splash is, like you said, Caleb Banks, injured guy. I think fans are a lot more happy when it comes sizzle over substance. And there was really no sizzle. So that'll be intriguing. As you said, will the new GM want to put his stamp by getting some sizzle and getting the fans excited? Because PR is an important aspect of the job, is getting it right on the field.
Right. And I wouldn't argue there's been much substance either. in addition to the lack of sizzle. So we conclude today's squad show, and we'll be back on Thursday for more. We'll rank 80 through 71 on the roster, plus more Minnesota Vikings talk and maybe some more details about the draft. We thank you for watching, listening, commenting, and subscribing today. And we'll talk to you next time on the #1 Sports Podcast Network.